We're going to be learning how to punch the dental dam. And what you need to do at the beginning is actually take a look at the patient's mouth. You're going to be taking a look and you're going to be determining, are you going to be working on the maxillary? Are you going to be working in quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4? Are you going to be working on the mandibular? And what you would be doing is you're looking in the mouth, you're taking a look at their arch. Do you see how the arch, say on the 4th quad here, do you see the curve? When you're punching a dam, you always want to follow the patient's curve. If you do it too straight, if you punch the holes too straight, it won't fit in the patient's mouth. Follow their curve. If they have a tooth that's erupted on the vestibular, you're going to have to adjust your punching to come out and include that tooth. Or if there's a tooth on the lingual that's erupted, you're going to have to take your punch and follow that arch. So that being said, let's take a look. You are provided with a template that when you're starting to punch dental dam, it's the card with all the teeth. You can see the holes for the teeth and the suggested location where they would like you to place it. They've also divided into quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4, so that when you place it on the dental dam, how they've designed it is you can take a pen and actually mark through the holes a little mark, and then it helps you to know, there's a little imprint in here, it helps you to know where to punch. What we're going to do is we'll start out using the template because this is new for you, and then eventually you're going to get to the point where you will not use the template. There will be no markings on the dental dam, and you will be just doing it by recall of how things are marked and how things are punched in the dental dam. So it's divided up like this. What you want to do is, if you're working on the maxillary, you always want to leave at least 1 inch from the top, from the edge of the dam. Leave 1 inch. This is to cover the upper lip. If the patient has a mustache, well, then you're going to need to leave more than 1 inch. So your holes would be down here. Never have a hole up here, right here, because then it's not going to go over the upper lip. So make sure the max it's at least 1 inch. On the mandibular, they ask that you leave at least 2 inches before you start punching your holes. So the holes would start here. Okay? And you can kind of see how they've got that on the template as well. They've left space. And also you want to leave space from the edge as well. Don't put your holes out to the side. Make sure that they're closer to the middle. Now where these two lines join, that's the back of the mouth. This is the back of the mouth. Okay? So let's go and let's look at an anterior isolation and what that looks like. So an anterior isolation, so if you're working on the anterior teeth, and we'll talk about the mandibular first of all. If you're working on the mandibular, you only punch from cuspid to cuspid. That's all you do for anterior. If you look on the maxillary, same thing. The maxillary, it's only punched from a cuspid to cuspid. If you've marked your dam, that's good. If you didn't mark your dam, what you can do, just in order to give yourself a little imprint so you know where the middle of the dam is, just fold it, open it up, and then for the mandibular, you're going to want hole number 1 for the central and laterals. So you would come in and you would punch. Now you place your punch together and you pull the dam up the stylus. And then you've done your lateral. Then change to hole number 3 for your cuspid. And then you would go over and do 1, 1, and 3 as well. And that's for the mandibular. So it would line up like so, which is really good. Now when you're punching for the maxillary, you're going to punch on the bottom as well, but the central and lateral holes are going to be one size larger because these teeth are larger than these ones. So this is 1, 1, 1, 1, and then hole size 3 and 3. The maxillary is going to be 2, 2, 2, 2, and then the cuspids are going to be hole number 3. You punch it exactly the same way. So the mandibular, it just fits right nicely on there. For the maxillary, punch it exactly the same way. It looks like it's going to be for the mandibular, but the bottom, these holes are larger. And then what you do is you just turn it over, and it's going to fit the maxillary. So let me just repeat this. Whether it's for the mandibular or the maxillary, you're going to punch it on the bottom part of the dental dam. The only thing that's different are the sizes of these 4 little holes. On the mandibular, it's size 1. On the maxillary, it's 2. And on the maxillary, you're just going to turn it over, and then it's going to fit quite nicely over the teeth. So that's for the anterior. Your textbook talks about a few more different types of isolations. We've covered the anterior, and now we're going to take a look at the posterior and also at the single tooth isolation. So if you are only wanting, or the dentist only wants to expose one tooth in the arch, then all you do is punch one hole. It might be for an anterior or it might be for a posterior, but all you do is you punch one hole in your dental dam. And because the clamp is going to go on that tooth, it's going to be hole number 5, the largest hole that you do for your single tooth. As I mentioned, it could be for an anterior or it could be a posterior for the single tooth. Then we move on to the posteriors, and you can see that there's 4 holes punched here. It's called the multi-tooth isolation, and it's 3 to 4 teeth, and that could be any posterior. So it could be in quadrant 3, 2, it could be in quadrant 1, or it could be in quadrant 4 in the posterior, and it's 3 to 4 teeth. The other posterior isolation is the optimum tooth isolation. Now that involves more teeth, and it's 6 to 8 teeth. And here you can see how I've done 6 teeth here. Okay? So let's talk about how we're going to punch the dam for a posterior isolation. We're going to take our dam, and you can fold it in half so you know where the middle of the dam is. Then open it up, and remember I told you that this part is at the back of the mouth, and we're going to pretend we're working in the 3rd arch. So if we come over a little bit, that'd be about where the 3/8 would be, and then 3/7, and then it'd come down an arch like this. So I'm actually going to go and I'm going to turn my disc to the largest hole, number 5. So I'm going to come up over here, and I'm actually going to punch for the 3/6. And then I'm going to move to the number 3 hole. I'm going to leave about 3 millimeters between holes, And I'm going to do for the 3-5, the 3-4, and the 3-3. Now you can see how it's starting to curve. It's not straight. This would be a multiple tooth isolation. If you look on my mannequin, I'm going to clamp the molar tooth. I'm going to clamp the 3-6, and if I clamp the 3-6, that's my anchor tooth. That's called the anchor tooth. And the largest hole is called the key punch hole. It's going to go over my anchor tooth and the clamp that's on there. So I'm going to be working on, the tooth to be worked on would more than likely be the 3-5. If I clamp the 3-6, I'm going to be working on the 3-5, and then I'm going to expose the 3-4 and the 3-3. So this is your anchor tooth. This is the tooth to be worked on. You always, what you do is you always clamp one tooth behind the anchor tooth. And this would be the multiple tooth isolation. I'm just going to add a couple more holes and show you what the optimum would look like. So I have my 3-6 is the biggest hole, 3-5, 3-4, 3-3. I'm going to do 3-2 and 3-1. So now I have 6 teeth, so that makes it the optimum. And that would mean that I am exposing, I would be able, once I have the dam on, I'd be able to see 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, all the way to the midline. And that would be the optimum. Now, this me punching in quadrant 3, I can actually turn it. If I flip it over, it would actually fit in quadrant 2. I can actually turn it again, and it would fit in quadrant 1. And if I turn it again, it would fit in quadrant 4. So if you want, you can always punch for the posteriors in quadrant 3, and it just gets flipped around. Now, if you find that's too confusing, some people will punch in quadrant 3 if they're working on quadrant 2. If they are working in quadrant 1, they might punch in quadrant 4 and then just flip it over and it'll fit in quadrant 1. So these are just a few little things in order to help, because it's always good to punch on the mandibular if you're doing a posterior isolation. And I find that when I'm punching, then I'm bringing the punch towards me, and it's just easier. It's very hard for a person, if they're trying to punch for the maxillary, to come in this way and get the arch correct. So the reason why I encourage you to always punch on the mandibular is it's more efficient and it's less confusing, whether you do it on the 3rd quadrant or the 4th, and then just flip it around so that it fits the quadrant that you're going to be working on. There's one more thing that I want to show you. People's arches don't always look like the mannequin's arches. Take, for instance, we have an arch and we have this premolar has erupted lingual. So that means if I was punching for the 2nd arch, I would have to account for that tooth being erupted on the lingual. I may be in a situation where a tooth has erupted on the vestibular. So I have to adjust my punching in order to include that tooth. And I'm just going to set this model down and I'll show you what I've done. So for this model, I'll move it over here. Do you see how I've punched for the 7, the 6, and then I went lingual in order to accommodate for the premolar that's erupted lingual, and then I come back out and then I punch for the rest of the quadrant. And that's if it's malaligned. So here I'm just following the patient's mouth and always making sure that my dam reflects what I see in the patient's mouth. Let me just mention a couple of things. The space between the holes, that's called the septum of the dam, the space between the holes. The tooth that you're going to put the clamp on is always punched with the largest hole of your punch. And that completes the punching of the dental dam.